The NFL trade deadline has come and gone, and Dallas was one of the few teams that sat there quietly and didn't really do anything. I think most people are pretty confident by now that this team is legit after smoking the Rams last week, but what was unreal to me is how they just sat there and watched other teams that actually made it further than them last year make moves and get better, while they didn't even pursue trying to get Derrick Henry. Again, I'm not saying they needed to go out and make a bunch of changes, but it's crazy that they're in the position that they are at this point in the season and they didn't try to get better in some way. But I guess it is what it is, and we now all know what Dallas has to work with moving forward. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how the Cowboys have been able to be so dominant so far this season and what they need to do to get ready for the playoffs, because we all know that at this point, that's the only thing that really matters for this team. Yeah, it's cool to have a bunch of regular season success, but the fans are ready for postseason success, and if they get another early exit, then changes will most likely have to be made. Anyways, before I get into things, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. And also, follow me on Instagram as well, because I'm starting to post on there a lot. And all of your support truly means the world. Alright, so beginning off with that last Rams game, the Cowboys got up big early, and it was ugly. This was the best performance we've seen from this team so far this season, and it looked like the Rams didn't even know what hit them. Dak Prescott threw for 4 touchdowns, with 2 of them coming to Ceedee Lamb, who finally had the breakout game that everyone had been waiting for. It was a rough and tumble homecoming for Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford, who was replaced late in the third quarter after injuring a thumb on a failed 2-point conversion pass and aggravating the injury after catching another. Sean McVay said he didn't know the extent of Stafford's injury, and Stafford himself didn't speak to reporters after the game. Stafford led scoring drives on either side of halftime to help the Rams trim a 30-point deficit to 16, but mistakes just let the game get out of reach, like when Stafford threw behind Cooper Kupp to a waiting Bland for an easy 30-yard return and a 17-3 Dallas lead in the first quarter. In the postgame, McVay said, "We ended up recognizing that they were in a pressure situation and we had a miscommunication between Matthew and Cooper in regards to our route concept that has been one that we've activated and had a lot of success with it. That was a tough one for us." Anyways, moving on, now I want to talk about Dak Prescott because the Cowboys really did put on an offensive explosion, and according to what Mike McCarthy calls a part of the Prescott plan, they really cut him loose and let him play freely without a worry in the world. We all know that Dak has had major turnover problems over the last few years, and I think a part of that is just that he was overthinking and almost trying to not throw interceptions. Now, I'm not saying that they should just let him go out there with no game plan and have it be a free-for-all, but the Cowboys need to let Dak continue to throw deep shots and take risks because that's what makes him a dangerous QB. And if he can get in a zone throwing the ball, then that also opens up the running game more as well. This new plan really worked in that Rams game, and I already talked about how Dak had 4 touchdowns, but really, those stats don't tell the whole story because in just the first half alone, he had 3 with 255 yards, and the team put up 24 points. So if Dallas had to stay that aggressive in the second half of the game, he definitely would have thrown for 5 or 6. Before this game entering the bye week, the Cowboys offense had stuttered and sputtered its way to a 4-2 record, with the McCarthy scheme struggling to really click. But Dan Quinn and the defense was really pulling their weight on that side of things, and really, the defense is the main reason for this hot start. And if they didn't have that choke to the Cardinals, then this would be a 6-1 team looking to finish with the best record in the NFL. But yeah, the narrative was that Dallas relied too much on their defense to generate scores, so it was important for the offense to have a game like that. And man, if they can do that consistently with this defense, then look out. And also, one more small thing, I think when you look at a schedule and see that you have a really early bye week like Dallas had, you normally would be pretty disappointed by it. But I think it ended up coming at a perfect time because everyone was able to assess what they were doing well and what they needed to improve on with their performance. Alright, moving on, now I want to talk about the receiving unit because while like I said, Dak had a huge game, they were a big part of it. And Ceedee Lamb was so overdue to have a game like he just did. Coming into this season, I really thought with the addition of Brandon Cooks that this was the most stacked receiving core in the league. But Cooks really hasn't done that much yet, which means that defenses have been able to put their focus on Lamb. But he's just so talented that sometimes it doesn't even matter. Anyways, as I was talking about earlier, it really didn't make sense that they made absolutely no moves at the deadline. I'll give the front office credit, they're really good at drafting and developing talent, but when it comes to making moves, we saw teams like the 49ers go out and get Chase Young, and they just sat there and watched it all happen. Like, they're not that good of a team to where they could just settle with what they got. It would have been really nice nice if they could have brought in another back to put in front of or behind Tony Pollard, because he hasn't had the breakout season that everyone expected. But if they could have brought in Derrick Henry, then that would have added a whole nother dynamic to this offense. And again, I'm not saying that they should have given up something valuable for a guy like him, but it's just crazy that they didn't even make a phone call or anything. Before I end off this video, I definitely want to talk more about the defense, because as I mentioned earlier, they have been so good, and this upcoming showdown against the Eagles is going to be quite the test for them, and I can't wait to see it. When talking about the defense, McCarthy said, "I just think it's a matter of who you want to be and who you think you are. I coached a team for a lot of years that was offensive driven, but this team is about defense. Let's make no bones about it. That's not a slight against the offense. We want to score as many points as everybody, and we're not playing not to lose. Don't mix the message here. We play to our defense. That's the strength of our team." It definitely wasn't easy losing a guy like Trayvon Diggs early in the season for this unit, but everyone has had each other's backs, and the backups have been able to fill in nicely whenever their name has been called. Looking ahead at the schedule, the Cowboys of course have what could be the biggest game of the year against the Eagles this week, then a few easy games, and they really don't face too many difficult teams until the end of the year. So once again, this is looking like a 12-5 or 13-4 team. But like I said, people could care less what their record is. It's all about winning in the playoffs. That's really all I have to say for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this Dallas Cowboys team now that we are past the trade deadline and almost headed into the second half of the season. This roster just has so much potential and so much talent across the board, and I don't want to say that this is their year, because that's what people say every year and it never works out, but eventually you gotta think that the law of averages plays a factor, but maybe not. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you all so much for watching, and once again, if you haven't by now, make sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly means the world. And until next time, I will see you all later.